Hi, it's Friday, September 5th, and we're tracking two systems in the tropics today, the same two that we talked about yesterday. The first one is Hurricane Kiko in the open tropical Pacific. Still a major hurricane today, and it's going to be tracking northwest over the course of this weekend and into early next week, and gradually weakening as it does so, though it will likely be nearing the Hawaiian Islands, where we could see some impacts to those islands by Tuesday or Wednesday of next week. We've also got Invest 91L in the open tropical Atlantic today, well southwest of the Cabo Verde Islands, and the system it's going to be tracking west over the next few days and will likely be nearing the Lesser Antilles by middle of next week. That's a general time frame to expect it. And we'll talk about the forecast shifts that we've seen with the system, as there has been some dramatic ones over the course of the day today. But first, we're going to start off with Hurricane Kiko in the Pacific, as this system is still a major hurricane today and may bring some impacts as a tropical storm to the Hawaiian Islands as we head into the middle of next week. Now, we've had a very similar timeline with this system over the past 12 to 18 hours than we did this time yesterday, in that overnight, the system's eye had become more obscured and the system had noticeably weakened. And it came off of its category 4 intensity. It is now a category 3 hurricane, and it still seems unclear to me exactly what happened. We did see that in a nighttime microwave pass that the northern eye wall was opened up, it seemed like. And it's possible that some dry air and maybe some increased vertical shear caused the northern eye wall to be disrupted, and that helped cause the weakening trend. But we can see in this microwave pass that we got earlier this morning, closer this afternoon, that this eye wall has been repaired. And now we're seeing today the system structure get better organized, very similar to what we saw yesterday with the eye trying to clear out now. And if you look at the colored infrared imagery, you can see that we have the eye becoming much more evident here and much more circular. And this indicates that we're likely seeing another phase of intensification with the storm. It's possible that we do see this system reattain category 4 intensity over the next, say, several hours. But the general key message remains that this is all happening out to sea, and the system is now nearing some of the cooler waters. You can see there's a lot more dry, stable air off to its northwest, and this, with colder waters, will likely lead to steady weakening, or gradual weakening rather, over the next few days as it continues tracking northwest. Now, as it nears the Hawaiian Islands, there is going to be, like I talked about yesterday, a lot of southwesterly shear that's going to begin to impact the system very strongly. And you can see here's a storm right now. This is out to Tuesday morning, or Tuesday evening, or Monday evening local time. Apologies, I'm messing up my times there. But you can see by Monday evening, it's very close now to the eastern Hawaiian Islands. And by this point, the system is tracking west. And so we have this strong southwesterly flow from this upper level low. And that's a very strong vertical shear. And no matter the state the system is in, that's going to cause it to weaken drastically. And it will be struggling to maintain its tropical identity as it stays north of the Hawaiian Islands. Now, we have seen a shift on model guidance of this staying north of the Hawaiian Islands, which I talked about yesterday, is a good thing, because with this southwesterly shear vector, all the thunderstorms that the system will have associated with it will be on the northeastern side, thanks to this shear vector. I could show you this best if we look at the infrared imagery, or simulated infrared imagery rather, from the HAFSA. This is out to Tuesday afternoon local time. You can see the center of the storm is right about here, and with that shear vector from the southwest, all the thunderstorms are on the northeastern side. And the effect of this means that all the heaviest rain and strongest winds are also on that northern side, and this leaves the Hawaiian Islands hardly getting anything. There might be some, if I go to the precipitation map here, there may be some showers that periodically come across the islands, but you can see all the heaviest rain here is staying north of the islands with that southwesterly shear. Now, one thing to watch for still, as this is still a 4 to 5 day forecast when it's at this nearest point to the Hawaiian Islands, is do we see the system track a little bit south or a little bit further north than the current expectation? I mentioned that we do have right now models agreeing now on this more northern track. In fact, the HAFS model was much different from what I showed you yesterday. This time yesterday I had it coming into the Big Island. Now it's much further north. One thing that could potentially cause it to come further south. Is, as I talked about, the weaker the system gets, the more quick it's going to make that westward bend towards these islands. And so if this shear does kick in and weaken the storm a little bit quicker than models are expecting, that could be a scenario where we do see the system weaken at a quicker pace, and then we see the system come further south. And that may be a scenario where we may get some of these stronger showers of storms over the Hawaiian Islands. But the probability of that, I wouldn't say, is all too high. Models are in general agreement right now on the progression of the system over the next few days. And you can see this in the National Hurricane Center forecast cone, with this taking generally the model consensus staying north of the Hawaiian Islands. Though we do have in this uncertainty range that potential for it to come through these islands. And the impacts that we could feel there if that did occur would be tropical storm force winds, especially in the higher elevations, and heavy rainfall, which could lead to some localized flooding issues across this region. And finally, for this storm, this is the earliest reasonable arrival time of tropical storm force winds in case we do get them, and the probabilities of it in shaded colors. You can see the earliest reasonable time frame is Monday morning. So expect it Monday morning to Monday afternoon in the eastern part of the state. And you can see the probabilities here, 10 to 20%. Not all too high right now, but that could increase if we do see those deviations down to the south. But this general time frame, Monday morning, is about when you want to have your preparations done. If you do need to make any, as beyond that point with tropical storm force winds potentially coming in, that would make conditions outside a little bit too dangerous to really do any preparations. But of course, we'll keep watching this as it comes northwest. Again, the good news is it's not going to be a very strong storm impacting it. And in fact, between these 2 points, I believe this point is 70 miles per hour and this is 40 miles per hour. So that highlights that very fast-paced weakening with that strong vertical shear that we're expecting here. But regardless, the impacts that the system may bring will be covered by the National Weather Service in Honolulu. They'll have good local information on exactly where, what magnitude of impacts each island could get. And the National Hurricane Center will also continue having advisories on this as it continues tracking north and west. And if we get any watches or warnings, those will be issued, I imagine, this coming weekend. But I don't know if those will be necessary. It depends on exactly how the system tracks over the next few days. And I'm going to have more videos on this as well as it continues tracking northwest. But for now, that's all for Hurricane Kiko. We're now going to move off to the east into the Atlantic as we have Invest 91L sitting still southwest of the Cabo Verde Islands. And the system has had a lot of shift in model guidance over the past day. But first, I want to focus on the way the system is acting now, as now casting a lot of the stuff right now with these systems development often does help us get a semblance of how the system is going to perform in the future. Now, compared to yesterday, the system has not made a lot of progress. As I talked about yesterday, there was an area of low pressure that formed under some decent convection over the system by this time yesterday. Now, since then, we really have not seen all too much change. Really, the only change has been negative for 91L. And what I mean by that is now you see the convection today, it's a lot less more spread across this area of low pressure. It's just more sporadic bursts of convection all over the place. And because of that, this area of low pressure has not really changed all too much. It's not really strengthened. It's not really weakened. It's kind of remained in a steady state over the past day. And this is a problem because now the system, what it needs to do to become a tropical cyclone is maintain convection over this area of low pressure, as that will help tighten up the area of low pressure that it has at the surface. And there is some dry air in the environment, but what this low can help do when it's especially tighter is it can help in a more efficient process pick up moisture off the ocean surface, loft it into the air, re-moisten the environment, and then you get thunderstorms blossoming up. Now, that may be what we're seeing today. We do see these sporadic bursts of convection. Oftentimes, what this can be indicative of is moisture that's being lofted in the air, and these thunderstorms are attempting to re-moisten the environment surrounding the disturbance. Now, that is a timely process, and we are also approaching diurnal minimum. That's where the sun is now setting over this part of the ocean, and so a lot of the solar heating during the day is going to go away. And we'll have to see exactly how the system does respond to that over the next few hours. If it does keep bursting convection like this, that may be a good sign for the system's future. But if it doesn't, And that may change things, continuing on to the trends that we've seen on the model guidance today, with the system going forward. Now, speaking on model guidance, we have seen a very significant shift over the past day in the GFS and European on exactly how the system is going to go as it tracks further west. Now, we talked about how this system was going to have a very favorable upper level environment in general for the next several days, and that would likely support tropical development. But one thing I mentioned is that there is a bit of dry air within the environment surrounding it. This is the water vapor imagery to highlight that. You can see this is where the disturbance is. And while immediately surrounding it, we do have, fairly moist conditions. Further west of there, we have these darker gray colors highlighting drier air off to the west of the disturbance. And it's possible that this dry air is helping to suppress thunderstorm activity in the center of the storm, and maybe why we're seeing the system struggle over the past day to generate meaningful convection over the system's center. Now, like I said, this kind of a pattern that we're seeing right now may try to re-moisten it, but the fact is that this dry air further west is a significant dry layer, and this may plague the system for a while. And it may be the reason why we're seeing models like the GFS back off significantly on its forecast from yesterday. This is a forecast out to the middle of next week, showing you the low-level spin in colors, the winds are in wind barbs, and you can see that by this point, we have an open tropical wave near the Lesser Antilles coming through by this point. Now, if you remember yesterday, by this point, the GFS had a hurricane hitting the Lesser Antilles. This is a much different change in tune from the GFS model. And what I think is going on here, best from what I can tell, is that this dry air is plaguing the system right now. It's keeping it from having meaningful convection go up over the system center. So it stays weak over the next few days. And while it's true that we do have a generally favorable upper level environment, you can see in all this white coloring here, that indicates a light flow aloft. In general, that is favorable for a system to develop into a tropical cyclone. The caveat to that is trade winds in the Caribbean. And typically you have 15 to 20 knot trade winds in the Caribbean. And we do have that here on this model forecast. If I take a sounding here over the wave, you can see we have, maybe this isn't the best example, but as it moves into the Caribbean, we have those, you can see it here, 15 to 20 knot winds near the surface. These are those easterly trade winds that you usually have in the Caribbean by this point. Now, we have those light winds aloft, and this is not a vertical shear per se, but this is a speed shear, and is often what kills tropical waves moving into the Caribbean. Now, they're not as strong and not as hostile as they are in early season, like in June and July. They are a little weaker now than they typically are during the peak months in summer, but this can still disrupt the system. They can still cause what is called low-level divergence. That's air rushing away in the low levels of the atmosphere, and that can help dry out the environment and make these waves struggle to exist. But also what that means is that this a surface axis that the system has is going to begin to rush ahead of the mid-level circulation and all the convection it has. So if we look at this mid-level moisture plot, you can see that the surface trough here is now in the Eastern Caribbean. But if we follow the wind barbs showing the mid-level trough axis, we have southeasterly winds here east of Barbados, northwesterly just west of the Lesser Antilles. This is highlighting the trough axis in here. So we have the mid-level axis here and the surface axis here. And this is a very significant tilt with height. And when you have a wave that's tilted like this, this can often make a system struggle a lot to develop. Really what you need for development to occur is these two to be stacked on top of each other. That's also true for tropical cyclones in general. But especially waves trying to develop, you want these to be vertically stacked. And so what I think is happening is that the dry air right now is keeping the system weak. And once it finally gets to an environment where it may be better dry air wise, you can see this dry layer that it has right now, it does get more moist further west of it. So this may be a better moisture environment for the system initially. But as it approaches these easterly trade winds, it begins to deal with that strong speed shear of 15 to 20 knots, and that causes the system to struggle to develop in the eastern and central Caribbean, which is why on the model we actually just don't see it develop into a tropical cyclone anymore. You can see it gets close before the Caribbean, but once it reaches those trade winds, it just weakens beyond that point. Now, this is importantly still a long range forecast. We're still 5 days out from the system approaching the Lesser Antilles and 7 days out from when it would be in the Caribbean. Now, things can change. We've certainly seen it over the past day. Things can change a lot in a 5 to 7 day forecast. And so it is still possible. We do need to now cast this a little bit, watching exactly how the system develops over the next few days, because the system does have a rather favorable environment still, speaking in the wind shear wise things. But if the system is able to get more coherent convection going, to have a more coherent low associated with it, that may allow the system to form into a tropical cyclone, even though models are not saying that right now. One also important note is that these models do tend to struggle with storms like 91L, excuse me, that are in the intertropical convergence zone like this. And so that can often mean that you have wide variance of different model runs, where one run shows it forming into a tropical storm and the other shows nothing happening at all. And so we are going to have to now cast this for a little bit. For the Lesser Antilles, this is still certainly something to watch for the next several days. There is still a significant possibility that we do have a tropical storm coming through. And you can see that the GFS does see that potential for development once the moisture gets better further west of it, just east of the islands. And this could be its opportunity to become a tropical storm. And if it is able to be more coherent by this point, that may mean that it's able to stay coherent as it heads further west, and we may have to watch this in areas further west. So there's still a lot of uncertainty in this forecast. For now, the National Hurricane Center is maintaining a high chance of development, 70%, a little bit down from yesterday, but to be expected with the model trends. But still a significant possibility, like I said, of the system forming as it tracks west into or towards the Caribbean islands. And I'll have more videos on this as we do go throughout the next several days. And again, we're going to now cast this and watch this, how it overall develops. But we do have time to watch this. Again, this is 5 days before the system actually gets to the Caribbean islands. So we'll see exactly what happens over these next 5 days. Okay, but that's all that I've got for both of these systems. I'll have more videos as necessary on both of these systems throughout the weekend and into early next week. But that's all that I've got for now. Thanks for watching.